We open in welcome to the ancestral people of this land, acknowledging that our church, like all of Burke, rests on the unceded territory of the Manahoac tribe of the Great Sioux Nation. We seek healing and the realization of justice with the people of this land, who live on in their descendants, the present-day members of the Monacan Indian Nation, the Patawomic Indian tribe of Virginia, and the Piscataway Indian Nation. We honor the ancestors as we move toward healing so that all together we shall one day know full justice. And usually our minister, Reverend Levewood, who's with us today actually, with his daughter, usually he's up here, but today we have a guest minister in the pulpit, Reverend Morgan McLean. She's been with us before. Reverend Morgan McLean is the acting director of the Unitarian Universalist Association's Global Connections Office. As a lifelong UU, she has been part of 9 UU congregations and has a deep appreciation for the varied living tradition that we all share. She and her family joined Accotink as members in December, and she has slightly lost her voice this morning, so if her voice is a little bit soft, you'll have to understand. She has a bit of laryngitis today. So good morning again. This congregation is a welcoming and inclusive spiritual home where we inspire each other to live our values. Together we care in community, grow in spirit, and act for justice. Whether you're a longtime member or a newcomer or something in between, we're delighted that you decided to join us today, so welcome. We have a special hymn coming up. In a moment, we'll have the chance to sing with UUs in the Philippines. You will see a familiar flaming chalice and pictures from congregations there. In the Philippines, Universalism emerged on the island of Negros, led by a man named Toribio Quimada. As a young man in the late 1930s, he read the Bible for the first time truly for himself, finding a new understanding of his faith. He was a minister, and eventually he got connected to the Universalist Church of America. In 1954, Quimada was excommunicated from the church he was serving, and the 9 congregations he was serving became the Universalist Church of the Philippines. In 1958, there were 21 Universalist congregations on Negros Island. Today, there are 27 congregations with a goal of 50 by 2050. Today, the now UU Church of the Philippines shares our 7 principles, and they have added an 8th, but made it their first. And that addition is, there is a God, and God is love. The words to the hymn are on this video, but you might want to follow along in your hymnal, number 182.
I'm really grateful to be here today in the pulpit, and my family and I have loved being members of this congregation. And those words were written by the founder of that Universalist Church of the Philippines, Toribio Quimada, and it seems appropriate for these days. And I'm wondering if anyone here has found the news a little scary or frustrating or confusing lately. Has anyone felt unsure of how they feel and where to focus their energy? So the news is bad, but I have some good news today, that we already have what it takes to get through this moment in history. because we have each other and a community, a religious community grounded in love. And each month, many Unitarian Universalist congregations across the country explore a theme, and this month the theme is inclusion. And of course, a year ago when they set inclusion as a theme, they didn't know there would be a governmental attack on diversity, equity, and inclusion. But we know that it's important. We know that it's a central value of what we do. And it is something that we have always done. And Jen, I think we're getting a little feedback on the TV. Did we mute the TV again? Sorry. Is it better? Thank you. So Unitarian Universalists have been working on inclusion for hundreds of years. In the 1800s, Unitarians and Universalists welcomed people with different beliefs. They stood up against slavery and they advocated for women's rights. In the 1900s, Unitarian Universalists were one of the first religious organizations to officially support same-sex marriages and LGBTQ plus inclusion. Today, we have worked to be more accessible in many ways, adapting not just our physical spaces, but learning and worship materials for many different types of learners, online services to support disability inclusion, and open participation in our congregations even wider. And so that is a lot to celebrate, a lot that we already do, that we have been doing, and we are committed to continue to do. So we're going to create a little digital art. And I want to go back to that. You were asked, what does it feel like to be included? And included is an interesting word. What are some other words that use the same first couple letters of that? Inclusion, included, inclusive. You just say incantation? Inclusivity, includable is a word that I've never said, but I looked it up, it's a word. So what we're going to do is you can put in as many words. You can use this time to think about what words. What other words would you use to talk about inclusion? How does it feel to be included? What is the quality of inclusivity? What does that look like? What does that feel like? So you can just enter as many words as you want. And then I see, all right, and then we're going to be able to see the words that we're putting in there. And so I, of course, just lost my page on my phone, but I am ready for you to start shouting out some words if you are not on the QR code, and I will start putting them in, and then we'll see this. And so you can see the words that are bigger on this screen are words that they're weighted. So the more times those words are used by all of you putting this in, the bigger they get. So right at the center, don't you love it when that works out? Love. Love at the center, because that's what we do. We believe in dignity and belonging and welcome and acceptance. We've got, what other words? Participation by Zoom, yes, non-judgmental, coming together, power with, protection, united, not alone, fellowship, colorful, respect, equanimity, welcoming differences. See, we know how to do this, and we're pretty good at it. We're not always great at it, but it's a practice, and I'm really proud in these days especially, to be among Unitarian Universalists who center love and all of these values about opening up our community to as wide a group of people as possible.
So I'm Shelley Brosnan. I wanted to give a huge thank you. I'm going to miss some names. I apologize. Hypothermia shelter this past week was beyond amazing. We do a wonderful job every single year. As Ed knows, he's like, I'm speaking for Ed too. So people, we had the children and youth under Michelle Anderson's tutelage, provide an evening. We also had our amazing TAC group provide a meal. That includes, and when I say including a meal for those two groups, that was setting up everything, providing the food, doing the cleanup. And we had like 32 guests each night. Yeah, including we had, and all the other evenings. The food was so well received, so appreciated, all this hard work everybody put into making a homemade, delicious meal, and we had some cold nights, so it was so well received by our guests, and I know that Bailey Shelter appreciated, they constantly were saying what a great job we did. So thank you to everybody who provided food, help with in the kitchen, help with cleanup. I can't name all the names, there are too many, but thank you. And we had a few people come by in the evening and have a meal with our guests, speak to them, which everybody's welcome to do. So until next year, thank you so much to everybody.
And we light one last candle for those joys and sorrows left unspoken. And I have some words here from Reverend McLean. Join me now in the spirit of prayer and reflection. Perhaps you would like to close your eyes and find your feet firmly on the ground. Take a breath. Open yourself into this time that we create together. We gather here surrounded by the spirit of love. We are thankful for a moment of silence, a moment of community. Let us give thanks for our breath, which sustains us and can ground us in our being. May we find the quiet in all the chaos. May we be held in our beautiful, imperfect selves, loved beyond measure by hearts known and unknown. May you always remember you are worthy. We live in precious community, holding each other through the unpredictable journey of life. Let us lift up those in our lives, our family, our friends and neighbors. We pray that they may know our support, our love, and our good thoughts. Let us hold those in this congregation. We send our loving thoughts to those who are ill, facing uncertain times, wrestling with questions. May they know the support of this community. We join in celebration for those among us who celebrate milestones and good news, because there is good news, and we should celebrate even the smallest of life's joys. May we always feel our part in the larger whole, knowing our lives are interconnected with all creation. We lift up all those in our world community who seek peace, justice, and comfort, and the hurting earth that needs our action to heal. Let us sit in a moment of silence, to each in our own ways, to acknowledge the sorrows and joys of our being. Amen, and blessed be.
De noche iremos, de noche, que para encontrar la fuente. Solo la sed nos alumbra, solo la sed nos alumbra.
As the acting director of the Global Connections Office at the Unitarian Universalist Association, I have the great pleasure of working with UUs around the globe every day and finding new ways of being together. And today when I say UUs, I would like you to picture a slash between the U's, because we heard about the Universalists in the Philippines, although they have become UUs, Unitarian Universalists. But the U/U encompasses Unitarians, Universalists, Unitarian Universalists, and free Christian traditions. And if you are sitting here amazed that there are so many UUs around the world to talk about, that's okay. You are not alone. It is something we kind of don't brag about enough, maybe. Judy introduced us to the UU Church of the Philippines, and you saw some pictures from the congregations there. But if you imagine a map of the world and you were to put pins where there are UU communities, there'd be communities in Brazil and South Africa and Burundi and the UK and Germany and India and Indonesia and Australia and so many places in between. And each pin on that map represents its own unique history, its own social context of the faith, and that's why there are so many different combinations of how these groups have emerged or come together. Like here in the United States, the Unitarians and the Universalists came together in what year? Revlev? 1961, that's right. The United Kingdom, the first Unitarian service in the United Kingdom was held in 1774, and then those became the British Unitarians, and they merged with the Free Christian churches in 1928. And the Unitarian Universalist community of Brazil just had their very first in-person meeting last month. So there are a lot of things going on, and I'm going to share a little bit more in depth about a few of our communities. We don't have a worldwide pope. We don't all believe exactly the same thing, but we are related. We share a radical belief that we can change the world with our love, with our truth, and with that love and unique truth found in each person. We share a yearning for connection and for opportunities of deepening one's own faith by being in relationship with others and committing ourselves to including everyone in a broad community. In Transylvania, there was a Unitarian king in the 1500s. John Sigmund's mother, Isabella, raised him at that time as an anti-Trinitarian. And once an adult, King John became then the first and, I think, only Unitarian king in history. Under his rule, we meet the most famous Unitarian in Transylvania, Francis David. In 1568, Francis David represented the Unitarian cause at a conference or debate in the town called Torda. And the results of that debate was that King John issued the Edict of Torda, guaranteeing religious freedom, which was really radical at the time, maybe still is. Guaranteeing religious freedom, here's the not so radical part, it only extended to Catholics, Lutherans, Calvinists, and Unitarians. It is, and maybe still is, the most far-reaching official religious toleration law in Europe, and it proclaimed that faith was a gift from God, and no one should suffer at the hands of others for religious reasons. And no, this was not extended to Orthodox Christians, Jewish people, or Muslims, and here we are more than 400 years later with the same struggle. Transylvania and our Hungarian friends there. Transylvania is the mountainous region between what we look on as a map between Hungary and Romania today. But that land was Hungarian for at least 1,000 years, and it was only after World War I that it was given to Romania. So our ethnic Hungarian Unitarian siblings found themselves foreigners in their own land. And then after World War II, Romania, the Soviet army occupied Romania and then was forced to adopt Soviet communism. So until 1991, the Unitarian Church and all of their churches, their lands, their schools were taken by the government for communist rule. And even today, many of those churches are still arguing with the government to get all of it back. Through this, all of this change, they keep that Hungarian culture and their language alive. They have a residential Unitarian high school. And today there are about 150 Hungarian Unitarian congregations there in Transylvania, which includes about 50,000 people who are part of these communities. It's sort of like you're born into it. You're born a Unitarian and you stay a Unitarian. The Hungarian Unitarian Church today does have a bishop and a catechism, and it's a set. They have over 100 statements that when you're coming of age, you have to agree, and you're expected to memorize these 100 points. In one of these points, it asks, how do we understand God? We perceive God as soul and love. God is spirit. They that worship God must worship in spirit and in truth. The Unitarians in Transylvania have worshiped together and never given up their identity. The strength and love they have for each other is demonstrated every day, and it's an example for us and really for the world. And I'm very excited to tell you that in April, which is very soon, 40 Transylvanian youth are coming here in the DMV area, and they're part of that Hungarian Unitarian High School. They are half of the choir. The choir is 80 people big. I know. So they're going to be in the area. Details to come. There might be an opportunity to offer a homestay. So look for that very soon. We have one little detail to iron out. And then on April 13th, that group is offering the service at River Road in Bethesda. So if you want to take a field trip. So let me take you to another community. So if you picture the world map again and you look at India, India is kind of diamond shaped. But there's a part of India, a state of India that is not part of that diamond, and it's actually north of Bangladesh. It's like goes off of the northeast side of India, and that's the state of Meghalaya, where you will find the Unitarian Union of Northeast India. And it is there that you will find a village called Molat, which is a Unitarian church and school that you all support. Is Marcia here? She's skipping church on the one day. So you will have seen Marcia sitting in the hallway with her display of the church there and the children that you are in relationship with and continue to support. And you share that relationship with Mount Vernon, U Church. And I think that's been since 2008. Is that right? Yeah. So has anyone traveled there? Anyone here who's here today traveled there? You did with Marcia. So that area was that in the indigenous religion, there was a non-Hindu religion with the belief of a creator God in the indigenous religion there. And so when the Welsh Methodist missionaries arrived in the 19th century, it was sort of a easier sell, maybe, and they produced a translation of the Bible in the local language. But that local language, Kasi, as I understand it, was really mostly a spoken language at the time and wasn't even really a written language, so the missionaries even had to create the written text to write this Bible. And the UU connection begins with a Kasi person, Hajam Kishore Singh. He was born in 1865, and he attended one of a Methodist missionary school. But he began to question the Christian teachings and read that Bible for himself, and he began to form questions about the nature of Jesus and God, and he soon learned that other people had asked the same questions in other places. And eventually he got connected to the writings of the American Unitarian minister William Ellery Channing, and that's where he got the word Unitarian for the faith that he was discovering for himself. In the Kasi hymn book, that starts with Hajam Kishore Singh's articulation of God as one God, one church, one people, one mission, love God, love friends, live a blessed life. On September 18th, 1887, Hisham Kisor Singh led the first Unitarian church service in his home. It was one woman and two men who joined as the first members. And today there are 35 congregations there, and many of them have their own school. And what I find, I think this is my favorite tradition that I've learned about. So that September 18th is a very special time. They call it Anniversary Day. And they celebrate the whole month leading up to September 18th with special meals, and they make it, the goal is to visit every church member's house before September 18th. So sometimes it's 2 or 3 parties in one night. And you go and you sing a hymn and you have some tea, and you celebrate the joy and the hospitality and the love and the hope that you find in Unitarian communities. They also, on Anniversary Day, have a parade, and I saw this video of like a pickup truck that had a giant chalice, like burning in the parade. So I think we have some, maybe for our Pride Parade, we can get a giant burning chalice. And the motto of the Unitarian Union of Northeast India is Tu Nangroy, or keep on progressing. And outside of Nairobi in southwest Kenya, we're going to fly a little bit, and you will find one of several UU communities in Kenya. And there are independent churches, and they, at this time, do not have like a unified council. So they're independent churches. And their community motto is, I am because you are, or Ubuntu, which is an African philosophy found in many communities. This community that I am speaking about is actually made of 2 different congregations, and they have about 300 members between them. And those members speak 3 different local languages as well as English. And their lead minister, Justin Magara, describes the basic meaning and purpose of our existence is love and tolerance to one another in community. They find their theological grounding in community values and in the 7 principles statement of the Unitarian Universalist Association. And their church's liberal values are quite unique in the area, where a lot of conservative and evangelical Christianity has colonized, literally. And they are really committed to creating an inclusive community, including LGBTQ+ spaces that are safe, which is incredibly complicated in Kenya. There are so many more that I could tell you about, and I hope I'll have a chance to tell you more sometime. And these communities, for me, it's been this opportunity to not just learn from them, but to really deepen my own faith, to understand Unitarian Universalism is so much bigger than what, even though I was born into this faith and have been part of 9 congregations, I'm learning something new every day about the ways that we can live into these values and what it means to really, truly be centered in love. And an important part of my journey in this, and what I'll invite you to reflect on too, is that practice of inclusion in new ways. And it's been important to take a step back to reflect on what the American engagement looks like with our global partners. Certainly, I can see the American tendencies, you might also say Western or capitalistic or colonial tendencies that we have that do not foster truly equal relationships. Americans are exceedingly generous, and many organizations have been able to do tremendous work around the globe thanks to American generosity. And I'm talking about private donorships. I mean, if you think about Planned Parenthood or Amnesty International or the Unitarian Universalist Association, and so many global partners, the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, lives have been transformed by American generosity. And American systems of relationships and charity and education are sometimes, despite our best intentions, our tendencies have perpetuated inequity and made achieving inclusion difficult. We Americans, as a culture, we're like a fixer. We always know what's best. And we definitely will give you money to do what we think you need to do. No question. And we love a building project. Oh my God, do we love to give money to building projects. But we don't always ask if that's what's needed in the community, right? We decide what you need is a building, and then or whatever. Or you need, fill in the blank. A well would change your life. Well, maybe that's not a priority in that community. So my learning about inclusion is to be self-reflective about my American tendencies, to not really listen to what's needed. And so to change the way of listening, to listen without making suggestions. Because we also do that, here's just 5 little ideas. Don't even give the 5 little ideas. How do we really listen to create equal relationships and to support in new ways? And I am bossy. I am. And ask my husband. And I can influence a decision both intentionally and unintentionally. And so if I can just zip it and listen to what's needed, then we can really change patterns. I'm also unlearning my white American love of spreadsheets and a sense of work and outcomes. American organizations love a mission statement and like a strategic plan. Who's been part of a strategic planning process? Yeah. For what? Like strategic planning for conquering the world? And what we do is we lock ourselves in a room for a weekend and we think we can come up with a plan for 5 years. Well, what about the people who weren't in that room? Do your strategic plans make room for including new voices? What if you were wrong? What if you went into that room with the wrong assumption and you never built in any time for reflection or change or flexibility? So some of the ways that we do relationships need to change. And a big learning for me, and I think for the Unitarian Universalist Association, is about centering relationships over outcomes. So in that 5-year plan, really, lock yourself in a room and make a 5-year plan. But if you center relationships in the question, instead of growth or progress, so what would it be like to really talk about, the point of being together is fostering inclusion and relationship. Prior to being in the Unitarian Universalist Association, I was the volunteer chair of the board for what was known as the UU Partner Church Council, which was the organization that supported those partnerships like you have. And even before the whole world changed in March of 2020, we knew, the UU Partner Church Council knew that we needed to do something differently about the way that we have these global relationships. And eventually what happened is we admitted to ourselves that we didn't really know how to do things differently. So to commit to it meant finding other people who were ready to be creative and help us keep progressing. So we took a bold step and we dissolved that organization. And we gave our power, our public support, our membership list, our remaining funds, and our true commitment to a new thing. We intentionally formed a group called the Leadership and Design Team and encouraged them to take the time they needed to make space for what's next, to not lock ourselves in a room and imagine what we could create create a product in a weekend. But if we are to create inclusive organizations, we actually need time and space for reflection and personal growth and new voices. So this group took more than a year of meeting for 90 minutes twice a month. They committed to 90 minutes twice a month, and they took a year to build trust and an understanding of each other before they started the work of creating something new. But of course, those 12 months were the work. That was the work of centering relationships, not the work of imagining what a goal would be, but the actual work of 9 people from around the world, half of them under 40, all of them committed to living their faith in a different way, all creative thinkers, all learning new ways together. This group has now it's been about 2 years, and they just hired a part-time staff person, and they call it a facilitator. Not someone who's going to do programs, but someone who's going to facilitate relationships and create a UU global network, a vision where anyone who wants to be in conversation can be together. So I think it's very exciting to practice inclusion in new ways and to see that this is the future of our global faith. And we are connected more than ever thanks to Zoom and WhatsApp and Google Translate. And of course, the work of the generations of folks who built these partnerships and gave so generously to establish these relationships in the first place. The UUA is part of this UU Global Network, and we are a big supporter of financial resources because we can be, but that doesn't mean that our voice is weightier. Instead, we intentionally de-center American voices, and we encourage the staff, facilitators from Kenya, the volunteer leadership from around the world, from communities that have not had as loud of a voice in the past. And if you don't know, Zoom has translated captions, and there's about 30 different languages. So, what an amazing thing to invite someone not to have to speak English, not to be proficient in English to be part of the conversation, but they can express themselves in their own language, and we can see in real time the translation there. I know that it is not an insignificant thing to change how we Americans or how we Westerners do things. It's about using language differently, sharing our wealth differently, understanding ourselves, continual self-reflection, and understanding our North American selves in this global context. I'm really excited, I guess, to be part of this and to be part of it with all of you. I think it's a really exciting time, despite a really challenging time in world history. We are part of this global faith. We're not just here in Burke. We are in Brazil and Burundi and Kenya and Ireland and Scotland and Germany and Australia and Philippines coming together, and we are holding hands to transform the world. And I'm grateful for each of you for being part of it. Thank you.
We march with joy as all walk together, embracing each one, we boldly stand.
So I invite you now to please rise in body or spirit and join in our closing words. If you feel comfortable, you may hold hands. If not, I encourage you to be in community with your neighbors. As we extinguish our chalice, I invite you to join me now in our community blessing with these words of David Bumbaugh, slightly adapted. This church is dedicated to the proposition that by celebrating our differences and embracing our diversity, we honor the unity that makes us one and binds us forever together in spite of time, death, and the space between the stars. We pause now in silent witness to that unity.
I send you forth with these words from Mwebutsa Najimana, the founder of the Unitarian Church in Burundi. He was persecuted for his beliefs and in 2015 had to flee the country with his family, and he now lives and preaches in Canada. I'm grateful for the faith that reminds me all the time to have faith in the human capacity of building a more just and fairer world, to have faith in our responsibility as we live in this place, to have faith in the many possibilities that God has for us, and to be open to freely embrace them. Amen.